Okay. Right. We'll start with this little self massage tapping exercise. Just rubbing your hands together and tapping over your face. Just pads your fingers from your jaw a little bit loose. And then work up over your head, down to your neck. Down to one shoulder. Just try and loosen your shoulder and your arm so you can feel the muscles vibrating just a little bit. Tapping the other side. And then onto your back. The lower part of your back, as much of your back as you can comfortably cover. And again, that sense of the muscles just loosening off a little bit around your hips and your legs. Up onto your body, to your belly first of all, light on your belly. And then maybe a bit stronger chest. Standing comfortably, your feet hip width apart, toes pointing forwards as much as possible, and turning in this center part of your body between hips and waist, starting off nice and easy, nice and gently. Couple of slow, gentle breaths, that helps. Letting your attention settle into your body so that you're becoming increasingly aware of your posture, your movement, and how those two aspects interact with each other. Not wanting to stand with that slight curve in our knees, our hips just dropping back. And that makes a significant difference to our movement. So a very gentle experiment. If you just pull your knees back until you feel them starting to tighten, notice how the whole kind of area in that center of your body locks up, indeed going through to the rest of your body. When we tighten up here, everything slows down and then everything becomes more stressful. So you want to try and have your weight a little bit forwards in your feet. This is exaggerated. Just gently allowing your hips to settle back. You can imagine just resting on the edge of a table or on a fence. So start feeling that your hips, lower back, buttocks, overhang just a little bit. It's quite a strong posture in your legs because as soon as you take the strain off your hips and your knees, muscles are having to work a little bit harder. Over a period of time, as the big muscles of, like the quadriceps, your hamstrings in your legs, this is true elsewhere in the body, as they start to condition so that this posture is within their capacity, then we can start to deliberately try and soften them, essentially to relax them. And as that happens, we allow more of the legs, the rest of the body to engage in the actions of both supporting and moving our body. So in two ways, we have a sense of what we might call connection in the body. One way is, I suppose, fairly obvious, but it's very important, is that when I move my hips, when I move my waist, my shoulders move, for instance. When my shoulders move, my arms move. But also with this conditioning and softening of the big mobilizing muscles of the body, it feels as though the movement goes deeper. We touch tendons and ligaments, skeletal muscle, fascia, and the bones. So over a period of time, there's this sort of distribution of the effort made to support ourselves, to move ourselves through the whole of the body. That takes the potential for strain away from particular parts of the body and furthers this long-term process of allowing the movement to flow more freely through the body, whether that's movement in your hips and your shoulders, whether that's movements like breathing and digestion and the metabolic processes, or the general sense of the movement itself, the flow, the energy. And this is something that we want to try and sustain through all of the exercises. So it's good to get a sense of that with a very simple exercise like this one, so that we can focus on those aspects rather than having to sort of think, oh, how do I follow this? Turning your hands palm out and just raising them up a little bit. Notice that my elbows are hanging down. And then pressing your hands through. Take a step forwards, maintaining the width of your step. Gently push your weight forwards and backwards. And just beginning to feel the significance of this weight transfer in combination with the turning of the center. Notice that as we go through these various basic points of posture, the alignment of the body, the dropping back of the hips, the deepening of the movement, the space within the posture. As we become more aware of them, as we're reminded of them for people who are familiar with these practices, they seem to work better, they seem to be amplified. And this is where awareness and intention start to interact with the body. And this is another key element that we want to try and sustain in all of the movements. And so these three aspects of body, mind, and energy beginning to interact with each other. Nothing is forced. We cultivate all of these aspects, and we may need to sort of focus on a particular aspect, but we want to be aware of all of them and how they interact. And then just shake out. So the notion of a warm-up is slightly absurd on a day like this, when we're experiencing quite warm weather at the moment. So it's not just about the physical temperature, that can be a factor, but actually about preparation to get the blood and the energy flowing through the body, to find the best way to actually do that, to bring our attention into the body. Standing again with your feet hip width apart, and feet can be parallel or just slightly turned out, but not too far turned out. They're splayed out like this. Everything starts to disperse. And overall, we want a sense of just being able to gather mind, body, and energy into one. There's a kind of blending that takes place. Just starting the slower movements with a gentle rocking forwards and backwards, so that you feel your weight moving in your feet, feeling how your body responds to that. When you go a little bit further forwards, you might find yourself stiffening up to avoid being pulled over by gravity. Likewise, when you go back, and just beginning to find this point of equilibrium, the point where rather than, I'll show you again from here, rather than being pulled forwards by gravity or pulled back by gravity, causing a tightening in the body. We feel ourselves being pulled down into our feet. Ideally, again, with your weight a little bit further forwards and correcting that slight angling in the body, not by straining in your chest or your shoulders or pulling your head back, but by just allowing your hips to drop back. This feeling of settling in nice and easy and gently, and then letting the hips drop down a little bit more and being pushed up. The body expanding and contracting. With that alignment of your body comes the possibility of your weight, your center of gravity dropping lower down. And the combination helps again to take the effort of maintaining an upright structure away from certainly the upper part of our body. Gives us more stability and helps to sustain this spaciousness within the body. So rooting down and alignment are really key elements here. Hence the name of this exercise, which is rooting down, allowing the center of gravity to drop, feeling the resilience in your legs, pushing you up. Just let that settle into a nice steady rhythm. Expanding. Your hands around as though you're cradling the ball, and as your body expands, I think of the expansion pushing your elbows out, but keeping your fingers close to each other. And then turn your hands over, pressing down. So as though you're lifting the ball, pressing it down. Try not to strain in your shoulders or your upper back as your arms rise. Letting your breathing come however's comfortable. Maybe with a regular breathing pattern, maybe not always, especially at this stage. Expanding and contracting. And this is a regular rhythm to all of the movements. And to maintain that gathered attention and maybe bringing in with that an image like moving through water, or as though the air around you was thicker than normal. Just observing the way that affects how your body's moving. Trying to feel that connection with the soles of your feet, right up in to the crown of your head and out to your fingertips. Moving as one gathered unit. And then turning your fingers out, pushing your arms away from the body. So they swing up gently. This is the wild goose. Again, feeling the main sort of energy coming from the ground and through your legs. But also aware of the patterns of movement, the changes in your upper body. Parts of your body expanding, contracting. One more time. And then so your hands drop down and chin up Elbows again, pushing out, drawing your fingers around in a circle, and this time, parting the clouds. In particular with these early, simpler exercises, as you get used to them, just try and have an image of the shape of the movement in front of you or around you. Just letting your body flow through that shape. One more time. Your arms hang down, feel the weight of your arms hanging shoulders, and then focusing on one side again, starting with your elbow. Drawing your hand up, wind your arm around, and again, dragon plucks the stars from the sky. Move your attention to the opposite side. Try not to rush the changeover. And if you find that you are, rather than trying to sort of strain, slow yourself down, bring in an extra detail, which is the center of your body. So that here you feel your arms drop down, you feel your fingers open, bring your attention back to the center and then to the other side and push. Dragon plucks the stars from the sky. One more on each side. And excellent. So that last point I made, it illustrates something that I think is important, that we don't force ourselves to slow down. We don't force ourselves to gather our attention. We're certainly not trying to avoid thinking. We can't avoid thinking anyway. We just think about not thinking. What we can do is redirect our attention. And as we become more aware of detail of the movement, and obviously for some of us, they've been doing this a long time, that can get very subtle, and that's important because we can bring an intentionality more effectively into the body. But before we can do that, we have to get this sense of gathering our attention, and we learn to pay attention. So, for instance, in that last exercise, I was saying, don't sort of force yourself to slow down. That would just be a strain, but just let your hand drop down, bring your attention to the center, then to the other side, as though you're, I don't know, reading a book and it's quite complex, and you suddenly realize that you've got to read very slowly and carefully, or maybe if you're watching a film or something like that, and if it's a complex plot, you're required to pay a little bit more attention if you're going to be able to follow it. And the effect in Tai Chi is to increase this ability that we have to gather our attention, to find that sense of stillness in the mind that is such an essential part of the exercise. So the attention to detail in posture and movement has this dual function. I mean, both those sides, those aspects will interact with each other, but more awareness of detail enables us to be more intentional about our movements, and at the same time, the awareness of the detail creates the condition that allows the intention to actually function, which is awareness. So in this basic posture weight a little bit forwards, hips dropping back. So we're trying not to tighten up in the body, particularly around the central part of the body. This becomes a major point of focus for us. Bring your hands in, and I'm going to come closer just for a moment. I want you to see if you can just lightly touch the side of your hips with the inside of your hand or your arm, wherever's comfortable, so that you actually register that part of the body through the touch. And then bring your hands around, push up, gently lengthening through your back and your spine, and bringing your hands back down. And once again, just take a moment to touch, and then lifting, pushing out to the side. And in that part of the body, you just registered the center, turning, and then back, lightly touch. Try and get into the habit of doing this as you turn in the other direction. You may notice that as you come back, there's often an urge to rush on. Take time just to complete the move. So we have 4 movements, 4 directions of movement. There's the upward direction, just a lengthening through your back and your spine, and then a contraction all the way back down. A sense of settling into your center, and then turning, feeling how the movement in your center redirect your arms back, settling into your center settling into the ground, rooting. Turn the other way, expanding and contracting, completing the movement with the touch, and then facing forwards and once again, we may use that image of moving through water. That helps with the flow of the movement, but also builds a very subtle sense of resilience, conditioning all the way through our body, and in the energy itself. This quality sometimes referred to as inner strength. Any resistance we imagine has to be the sort that encourages our body to soften. When we're in water, we tend not to lock our joints up so easily. We tend not to hold the muscles. But if that doesn't appeal, then there are other images we can use. So for instance, here, bring your hands down. As you start to push your hands out and turn, imagine there's an elastic band between the hands, not too strong, pushing out and then slowly turning. When we imagine resistance, when we meet resistance, if you go to open a door, for instance, that is quite tight, we move in a particular way. So if you go to open a door that you thought was going to open easily, you push into it and it doesn't move, and then you push again, but in that second push, you'll quite naturally move differently. We use more of the body. That's a very natural automatic response. And the image of resistance helps to build this feeling of a gathered movement. It's a good example of how imagery will begin to affect our movements. One last time. Hand drop and the next expansion again on one side, push your arm away from your body. This time, swing it up and straight down the center. One image I sometimes have with this one is that it's like standing beneath the door, the archway of a church door, and just pressing my palms out and sliding palm around the arch. And this time, adding the turn. So, from the point of view of our minds, there's both an awareness factor, but also this aspect of intentionality brought into the movement. Changing sides. Then we weight forwards a little bit, hips dropping back. Movement again expands out from your center. Remember, the center of your body is actually the part of your body you want to be dropping towards the ground. And once again, adding turn. One more time. And stand. It's important to recognize that when we're not forcing anything in these movements, this is not mind over matter, but rather a process of cultivation that involves awareness and intention, working with the natural patterns and structures of our body's movements. And this is important. The thing about moving through water for us, I use the example of a door, but if you've ever had the experience of going to pick up a bag that you're assuming is going to be quite heavy, and suddenly go, oh, somebody's emptied the bag, and so on and so forth. Our brains anticipate a situation. They read a situation and there's something. The bag is heavy, therefore you must move in a particular way, a more connected way, almost inevitably when we're moving against resistance. And so we're just gently trying to encourage that as a consistent thing in Tai Chi. Yeah, so that, as I say, that shouldn't be forced, but it becomes part of the background of the whole art. Another background aspect is this, this softening, particularly in hips and knees. And as we found earlier, when they tighten up, it changes the feel of the movement. So we don't want to be thinking about these things the whole time, because there's other things going on in these movements, just as there's other things going on in our lives. But they become a kind of background awareness, a background in intentionality. And we begin to just register when that actually gets lost. And so the process becomes one not so much of straining to maintain these things consistently, but just recognizing when some of those qualities get lost and bringing our attention back. Standing with your feet parallel still, tilting your pelvis forwards and then back to the up. When you tilt, the hips go back a little bit. When you come upright, your hips drop down, and that just brings your head and shoulders up very gently. Not having to strain in back, shoulders, or neck. Helps to maintain that spacious quality within the body. Just be careful with these next exercises with your your back and your knees. Hips go back, drop down just a little bit. And then let the hips drop down towards the ground. That brings your pelvis to level position and so first of all, pushing the hips back and dropping down. Then hips drop back, coming to the upright position and reach. This time, from the upright position, as you push up, your arms are pushed out again. But as your hips go back, they swung forwards and drop down. It's called rowing a boat in the middle of the lake. The arms gently circle over, extending gently through back and spine, your arms and fingers. Not going too far. I'm going quite fast so you can see what I'm doing, but it will be quite a small movement. Said it's strong in your knees, it's strong in your back. So anybody new watching this, be aware that this is not a competition to see who can move the furthest. Move as far as you're comfortable. Aware of the quality of the movement, because that quality of the movement is very related to the spaciousness within the body. And if we started to strain, then we no longer have that space. Rowing a boat in the middle of the lake. This time, hands dropping down onto your belly, palm down, turn horizontally, and then push your hips back, extend your arms, swinging around, hips drop down, come back to the hip. Change direction. This is called polishing the table. Again, gentle extension through back, fingers, and then back to the upright. From the back, see my hips go back and then swinging across and up. Nice and smooth. Remembering that feeling in the movement that comes maybe with that image of moving through water. That too becomes a background intention. And as we get more used to these movements, sometimes just remembering can actually be enough to change how our bodies move. One more time. And stand still aware of the pull of gravity in the hips and lower back as you stand. Shake out. So we're developing postures and movements that allow us to move with an alignment with the pull of gravity so that we cease to strain against the gravity. When we want to stand upright, a very common habit that we all have is that we pull our shoulders back, we tighten up in our chest, and we try and pull ourselves up. What we're trying to do in these postures with the Tai Chi is, rather than straining in the upper part of the body to push against gravity, we're using the structure of the upper part of the body to maintain an alignment and a connection between shoulders and hips, so that when our hips drop back, our shoulders naturally come up to the upright position. It's still a strong posture, but it doesn't require us to strain against gravity. When we stand, there are various ways we can think about this. Again, finding a useful image can be really helpful. I sometimes use the image of a tailor's dummy or a mannequin in the shop window. That our skeleton and the associated soft tissues and tendon, ligaments, and so on and so forth. I like the dummy, I like the mannequin in the window. And the soft tissue of our body, particularly the outer soft tissue, I like the garment that's that's sort of resting on that. If you go to buy a coat and you take it off the stand, this coat isn't stiff and hard. So this way we begin to be able to get a sense for how the body is supported, and as we gain confidence in that, then we're able to return to it more often, and more often being able to maintain, therefore, the spaciousness within the body. When the body's tight and holding on, there isn't space for. You might want to take a slightly wider stance with these next couple of exercises, and you can have the feet turned out a little bit, and just gently moving your weight from one foot to another. You're only going at the moment to about 60% of your weight initially. So it's quite a small movement, hence why we may have our feet a little bit wider. If I get this pole, okay, but can you imagine this as the sort of center line of my body? As I go across, you see where the pole goes to? Not quite getting to the foot. So now go across to your left that way, push your right knee forwards, and you'll notice that you can go across a little bit further. Put the heel down, go across, push the left knee forwards, and that just allows you to move a little bit further. It also increases the sense of the push from the leg that you're moving out of. And keeping with this idea of the center line of the body, imagine it's been like the pole of a weather vane. You get to this point, and then you turn on, just turn around that pole. Move back into your right foot, same thing there, turning around. Once again, bringing your hands to your center, and this time as you go into your left leg, you push the right knee forward and you turn. Let that connection with your hip push your arm forwards. It just extends out from your shoulder and it gets pushed up a little bit. Turn the hand palm down. Come back to the center. Move across. The same thing on your left, expanding through the left side of your body. Turn both hands, so now left hand is palm down, right hand palm up. This is hitting the ball in front of the shot. Extending through the right side. So there are these patterns, currents of movement in your body, really coming primarily from the ground, that push up from your feet, leading to the extensions through the side of your body, eventually reaching around like a wave coming up through that side of your body. It is directed and guided through the center of your body, expressed through your arms and your hands. The movement is there. It's like you're standing in the sea, the wave comes up, and you use that surge coming up, move your hand and just to direct it. The movement itself, the name of the movement, hitting the ball in front of the shoulder, suggests quite a strong dynamic movement. So we begin to understand how these ideas of alignment, of rooting, that releasing of tightness in the body, the softening of the body, particularly the soft tissue, actually leads us to a very dynamic and quite strong quality of movement. Don't overextend your arm. Moving only to a point where there's still a feeling that you could have moved a little bit further, that there's still a bit of space within the body for that internal movement. Whether that be breathing, whether that be a flow of energy or whatever, they're all aspects of it. One more on each side. From the parallel stance, hip width, turn one foot out, step straight forward with the other foot, maintaining the width of the step, and about the same, maybe a little bit longer in legs. And once again, transferring your weight, paying a little bit more attention now to the mechanism of the weight moving, coming up from, say, the rear legs through the center of your body, down into the front, and then settling into the front leg, feeling the springiness that develops in your legs. Legs are compressed and then expand, but instead of this time pushing you up, which it did in some previous exercises, the intention is to take that energy and to let it release. And once again, if we think about the center line of the body, for instance, then I'll show you with the pole here. Right. You can see at this point, I'm not getting to a point where my upper body is directly above my leg. But if I go forwards here and I push my back knee in, the heel comes up and I'll move a little bit further. When I go back, I raise my toes, I go a little bit further, so that I gradually begin to become more into line with one leg. So that alignment that we discovered earlier in the class when we were doing the rocking forwards and backwards is now being applied to being on one leg. Remember from some of the exercises that we've already learned that when we allow our hips to be pulled down by gravity, we cease to struggle with gravity, that affects the alignment of the pelvis and that affects the alignment of our whole body. So we remain upright, not by straining the shoulders, by releasing the hips. And then at this point, you can bring the rear foot in, push back, put the ball of the foot down, lower the heel, gently press the foot into the floor, go back, step. You plant the foot, feeling the contact with the ground. Taking your time. One of the reasons for taking what turns out to be a slightly shorter step than normal is so that we don't have to strain to reach out. And in normal walking, we tend to stride along more. But this gives us a chance just to reflect on certain aspects of walking that often we miss. Rooting down, transfer of the weight, contact with the ground. So now on the other side, and the hip width, transferring your weight forwards and backwards. This is described as filling and emptying. Can you imagine pouring water from one glass to another? And if you're finding, for instance, that your knees are tightening up, go very carefully, maybe reduce the amount that you're moving, maybe just shake your legs out. But ultimately, as I move my weight, say, into my front leg, the first part of my body that I want to feel the pressure of the weight should be the sole of my foot, not my knee. As again, quite a strong aspect. You're asking soft tissue of your legs to work much harder, so it takes time to build up. And pushing your back knee forwards, you have to build up. You also have to maintain that conditioning, and it's In my experience, it's an unusual conditioning of my legs. And then stepping in. Unusual because we're not focusing purely on the big mobilizing muscles like quadriceps and hamstrings. But we want to engage these other aspects, and they're often underdeveloped. But they too will respond to conditioning, practice and conditioning, or at least some of them will. Tends to be a slower process with things like tendons and ligaments, but there is still some change. This time, step through, I'm going to step forwards, heel goes down, toes, pressing in. You're more space behind you when you're going back. Just careful with the steps. So you're walking on thin ice and you want to test the ice before you commit the legs. You change direction. So we plant the foot, build a connection with the ground before we move. Once again, thinking about the detail of the movement, both enhances the movement and gives us a profound awareness of simply taking a step, and at the same time really brings our attention more deeply into our body. Now, have your right foot forwards. So mirror my moves. Show you from the side, starting with my weight in my back leg. I push forwards. If I was in water, my arms would be lagging behind a little bit, and then they swing through. Coming back, the same thing. We drop down to their full length and then naturally swing up slightly. I'm not trying to lift my arms. This is the exercise called fisherman castanet. And as my arms swing up, I want to just again observe what is happening in the upper part of my body, because as they do, some parts of my body will be expanding, others contracting. So again, I begin to bring my attention to these internalized movements. This is important. If we want to build the movement, want the arms to go further or whatever, we don't go to here and strain. We try and bring our intention to those subtle changes within the body. Tightness, stiffness blocks the movement. So fisherman castanet, they have this lovely wave-like quality of movement through the whole of the body, from feet to fingertips. We're going to keep that movement, but give it a more focused shape and a slightly stronger intention. This time, let your hands come back in front of your hips. Your elbows will go out slightly. Drop your hands down so that they're palm up. And as you go forwards, bringing your elbows in and just letting the shape of the arm produce a curve upwards, coming back. This is an exercise called pushing wave, and we can combine two approaches to this. One is that this wave-like movement through the body is what's creating the energy for the push, but also that we're pushing into water, we're pushing against the waves. So again, there's that little bit of resistance there. It's important that we're not straining, we're not thrusting with the arm. It's a smooth, curving movement upwards. Both these movements are straight forwards and backwards. So you're facing forwards. But this time, as you arrive in the front leg, turn a little bit to your left, let that separate the hands so they swing forwards and backwards a little bit. And then coming back again, they drop down with their full length to settle into the back foot. And as your arms swing up, body expanding, contracting, expanding, contracting. See, wind blows the willows. Try not to strain in your back, your shoulders, or your arms. The combination of the movement of your weight, that feeling of expansion from the ground, and turning in your center, guiding your arms into position. Just aware again of those patterns of expansion and contraction working through your upper body. Good. So those three movements on the other side. So, and your left foot forwards, starting with fisherman casting. So this cultivation of awareness, this development of our intentionality and the connection between mind and body, one way or another, gradually becomes deeper, more subtle, benefiting movements and our posture, benefiting our attention, because it brings that sense of a gathered, quieter attention more deeply into the body, becomes more embodied, more likely to stay with us. And it means that we can begin to produce slightly more challenging movements, but still without having to strain in the body. So these things are a process of continual cultivation. Three elements of mind, body, and energy developing together, supporting each other. An ongoing practice. Changing this time to pushing away. Maybe just imagining what it would feel like. You were pushing into water. There was the pressure of the water against the palms of your hands, your chest, your belly. How would your body respond? This time from the front foot, turning. Wind blows the willows. The willow tree, it said, has very deep roots, very supple wood. This time on the front leg, push your back knee in. Bring foot in, step back, plant the foot back. As you go into the back leg and turn, raise the front toes, bring the foot in, and this time step sideways. Let your hands drop down and then step forwards, and this forwards turn into your left. Just combining the movements you just done with stepping. And what we're going to do is to take that into the forward or backward stepping. So this time, stepping forward with your right foot or stepping back, whichever is more useful to you. Bring the empty foot in, step forward. This is called dragonfly skin stability. Hips dropping back, take your time, bring the foot in. Feel the alignment of your body over the supporting leg, bringing together many of the elements we've been looking at. And then, if it's comfortable, maybe this time, raising the leg. If you feel that you wobble around too much doing that, then leave that. But remember, a key thing here is going to be the alignment of your pelvis, that feeling of your hips dropping back, the center of gravity dropping. These are the elements that allow us a certain degree of stability. Change direction if you haven't done so already. Remember that image of moving through water. One more time. And so if you have an ambition to be able to do that standing on one leg, the key to this is again the sense of allowing gravity to work through your body. If you try to do this with the arms stiff, it just gets worse. So to develop that, the exercise that I suggest is to hold on to something, to rest your hand on a wall or a table and just practice both the sinking down and the raising of your knee. Play around with it a little bit. You could, for instance, here try the exercise that if I put my knee back, I suddenly feel as though everything's going wrong. So can I allow myself to drop? So you gradually get used to this process of releasing downwards. It's not ever going to be perfect, but it means that we begin to learn that we gradually are able to yield to the pull of gravity, to continue to remain stable, even if we're on one leg for a short time. It's not so much the significance of standing on one leg, but in those moments in our lives when we feel a little wobble, you trip or you slip or something like that. This is what we're looking to be able to do rather than falling over. So it's a useful exercise, not because we're particularly keen on standing on one leg, but to teach us what to do when we are in a situation where that sense of being centered and being rooted, as it tends to be lost. And the last exercise, Embrace Tiger, Return to Mountain, really develops that idea in both mind, body, and energy. So letting the hips sink down, and then as you push up, this time your arms coming out again. Bring your hands around, so you're going to hold the ball against your chest and draw your hands in. And starting with your hips, releasing, and then just allowing yourself to pushing out again, and just aware of feeling with gravity, pulling on your hips. How that actually helps you to begin to come back. And remember, this is a mind-body process. It's not just about your body settling, but bringing your attention in, finding those little moments of stillness and spaciousness in mind and body together. So take a few moments just to reflect on this exercise at the end of the session, and maybe to have a sense of what is it that brings you back? Maybe the name of the movement, you embrace the tiger and return to the mountain. Maybe it's a more physical aspect, something different. But so I like to say to people later on today, when you're a bit hot and bothered and maybe you're in town trying to get through the crowds or something like that, what would be most useful for you to recall at that point? What would be the best way of just coming back to this more spacious quality in mind? Embrace tiger, return to it. Once more. And thank you very much for joining in and watching, everybody. As always, do feel free to contact me with any questions. Enjoy the rest of your day.